All right, Vigor Warriors, how are we doing today? This is Vigor Warriors number 2. I always put myself second behind you guys, so that's why I call myself Vigor Warriors 2. We used to have Vigor Warriors Channel 1, but I decided that we're going to name this Vigor Warriors 2 because you guys are the Vigor Warriors out there day after day, working hard, keeping in retention, keeping this thing we got going, dream alive, the journey alive, to become the prevailing attitude in our United States, in our world, that retention is something that people need to take seriously and go back to the old days again in which people did take it seriously. I ran into a person, and before I start, go ahead, please subscribe, comment, like. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Great types of things, limitless vision. A lot of you guys saying different things, and I appreciate all the great comments. Thank you. I hope it's making a difference. So please go ahead, subscribe, comment, like, donate, all those type of things to keep us going. I think we're at 364 or 5 subscriptions now. So thank you so much. We're getting close to our goal all the time, and hopefully we'll get to 500, and then we kind of move up to 1,000 and keep moving. So very, very good. Okay, so I ran into a student that was talking about celibacy until she got married. And believe it or not, this was a concept that was around a lot of people for a long time. I mean, I grew up with that, and many people around me, at that time, children, families believed in that, and that you shouldn't go out and just go ahead and have intercourse and things like that with anybody, and you really waited until you found someone, the right person to have it with. And when you look at that whole philosophy, it kind of fits into everything we're talking about. Unfortunately, what's happened in society, because the different types of medias, internet, technology coming along, all this is kind of giving people a more of a window to see all these things that really we weren't seeing unless we kind of went out and tried to get those. And I think things like images and places where you see people dancing, all these kind of things on television, all the standards have actually gone down. And I think this is the key to what we're talking about. It was very heartwarming to talk to this young lady, and she must have been about, 18, 17 years old. And and what people do and what they say may be different. You never know. But it's nice to kind of see this philosophy becoming more important again. And I think women tend to look at this in a different way than men do, especially when they're younger. And if they're brought up in the right type of family, they know they're going to try to save themselves for the right type of person. Now, to me, this fits into the plan we're talking about. I kind of did the same thing. I married one person, and so we've been married over 30 some years. Now, why is that important? Well, I believe it's important for a lot of different reasons, right? And we've actually had a change in that type of attitude over the years, when people feel like, well, it's okay to have multiple partners and all this other kind of stuff. I believe that when God brings people together, they're bringing people together for a purpose, and there's a reason, and you should not break that up. If God brings people together, the Bible says, man should not break that union up. And that's why I don't believe in divorce. I don't believe in any of that kind of stuff that breaks up that situation. Now, I know people argue about abuse, all kinds of other things like that, but God has brought people together, and if you're in God's rules and laws, whether one person, both people are, if you're the person following those kind of rules, God's brought you together for a reason. So it is not easy. Obviously, being together with one person is challenging, because now you're focusing your whole life on trying to work together with one person who will think and act differently than you are. But when you look at people as people, you have to realize this person's a person, not just some kind of object that you're basically kind of sleeping with and losing energy over. And this is what's happening with people when they're sleeping with multiple partners. All of a sudden, they start losing a little bit of themselves in all of that. And I think that there's a lot of research indicating that when people tend to do these things, they're losing a lot of energy within other people. And that gets distributed to tons of people. If you're doing it multiple times, whether you're male or female, you're basically kind of losing a lot of that energy you have on multiple partners. And that, to me, destroys your soul. That destroys your weakness. You become very weak, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And so that's why we go back to this philosophy. And once again, it was very refreshing to hear someone even say this. And I know that people have always laughed at me when I've talked about this, and laughed at me by saying, okay, well, you have to find one person, and that's the most important decision you make in your life, because it creates happiness in the rest of your life. But this is also why in other places, in other countries, they have arranged marriages, because in a lot of cases the parents understand more than just the physical nature of things, because they're older, they've experienced it, and they see, well, are these two people really compatible? So when people get together and they start sleeping together, it's very difficult for them to kind of see the objectivity of whether or not they have the same values or ideas. It takes time for those people to work together to see, okay, do we have common goals? And this is what comes down to the values and ideas that people have. It really comes down to whether people really have the same type of values and can work together. You may find a person attractive, and you may even sleep with the person, but it doesn't mean you're going to be able to get along with the person. And I think it's very refreshing to kind of sit and say, okay, if you're going to get to know somebody, get to know this person, who they are, and then you can make a better decision on whether this person is the person you want to spend, your life with. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was blessed with this, to be able to say that my wife and I dated for, engaged for a year and a half, almost 2 years before we got married. And I was able to see how nice her family was and how nice she was and all the things that I saw. Now, we all have faults. We understand those, but then you see those things with people as time goes on, and you're going to say to yourself, okay, I see the positive and the negative. Do I still want to go through this? And this is why when you see arranged marriages, other things going on where people wait and they don't have that intimacy first, the intimacy grows as time goes on, all of a sudden now you're in a whole different type of mental state. You're getting married to somebody because the person's your friend. You're getting married to somebody because you want to spend time, you're compatible. All those things are a lot different than, all of a sudden having, okay, we're going to have sex, we have good sex, well, we're going to have and do it, okay? And so that's the kind of thing we need to kind of look at and see. So as time goes on, when you look at this whole idea, you're really kind of focusing on whether or not you can really kind of be the excellent person you want to be. And a big part of that is focusing on whether or not you are with the right type of people. And this is where this comes in. And so that's why it was very refreshing to kind of talk to this young lady and talking about how celibacy is something that's kind of making a comeback, because people recognize this, and I think women recognize this as well as men, that you just can't go ahead and just sleep with everybody. And I think it was it Jordan Peterson or someone, I saw some kind of title of a show, I never got to listen to it, so I don't really reference this here that much, but there's a title of a show that talked about that sex is not free. And what we mean by that is, of course, you're not going to pay money. And we're not talking about paying money for sex, but we're talking about the fact that even though people think they can just have sex with somebody, it doesn't mean that it's free from costing you something. And I think, as we talked about, the cost comes in a lot of different ways. First of all, the cost of having your energy lost is dramatic. And as you do it multiple times, all of a sudden you become weaker, and now you're more, now you're getting into more problems because of all that, physically and mentally, right? And then I think it takes your soul away as well. Little by little, if you're not with a person that you can spend your life with and love and those type of things, then it's a little different type of thing. And I think love is a key aspect of it. Now, when we talk about love, a lot of people have different types of emotions about that, but a lot of that goes back to the compatibility. Are you compatible? Do you have the same value system? Have you spent enough time with the person to be able to know that? or you just basically kind of sleeping with the person and hoping this is going to work out. And this is where people run into problems, and the more multiple partners they have, the harder it is for them to trust, and they become the hardened, what I call, the Bible talks about harden the heart, right? That means you become so desensitized to all this that it means nothing. And so I think people who have that, this means nothing. And so, you see people laughing at me all the time, and laughing at these type of ideas. But when you think about this, it makes perfect sense. Now, how does it fit into brahmacharya and celibacy, retention? Well, it fits in perfectly, right? Because the whole idea is that you want to try to become the best person you can become, and save your energy, and to be able to be very strong with your energy and have all the benefits. And the whole idea then is to say, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to procreate with one person, and I'm going to have children with one person, and that one person is the person who's going to share my energy. And that's all it's going to be, And so as you work with that person, and they're going to work with you, there's times you're going to basically say, okay, I'm going to share my energy with that person. Or there's times I'm not going to share that energy with one person. And those are the decisions you make with that one person. It's not like you're losing all your energy to people that you don't, you haven't procreated with and in love with. So this is a whole different type of attitude. And I know some people, they get very frustrated if their partner and their marriage partner doesn't want to have sex and things like that. But you realize you're working with a person. It doesn't necessarily mean you go out and have affairs and all this other kind of stuff. And once again, shame on people for doing that as well, because you're trusting in one person, and you're working with that person, and God's given you that one person to work with. So, this is a different type of way to look at things. And I realize that a lot of people may disagree with me when I'm talking about this. And obviously I've had people over the years make a lot of fun of me because I think in this manner. But I have just seen over the years that this is the best way to be, at least from my perspective, And so you can argue and make your own decision. But I've known lots of people who've had multiple affairs and multiple situations with people, and they end up struggling because they've lost touch. They can't have a real decent relationship with other people. They don't have a big trust level with other people. And it's almost like this whole thing means very little. It's the same thing as you're talking about anything, right? After you accumulate something for a long period of time, there's a tendency in it meaning less and less. And so even if you accumulate a lot of money, a lot of cars, a lot of things like that, it doesn't mean as much to people. And that tends to be the way human nature is. And so as you look at this whole idea, the more partners you have, the more desensitized you become. And so here again, that doesn't mean a lot of things either, right? It doesn't mean a lot of things for that whole same reason, okay? So as you look at those type of things, it's important to kind of realize how important things are when it comes to it. All right, so we're going to stop for the time being. Have a great day, my friends, and we'll talk to you soon. God bless. Battle on.